Good afternoon, everybody. How's it going? It's me, Comic Crack. No chat this afternoon. Rasa is unfortunately unable to make it. Let me double check. Yeah, that looks like that's working, Kate. Sorry, been having some issues with things lately. No Rasa this afternoon. She's not feeling so well this week, so I figured I'd do a Sunday wrap, Ronin style, Lost Samurai, Wandering Samurai style, solo style without my master. So let's just go right into things here. Did some pretty good reading this week. Actually, read quite a bit. A lot of like thoroughly enjoyable stuff, and then one that was like enjoyable but pretty harrowing. That was kind of earlier on in the week, and I quickly made a turn to some other things, which was a good idea. I've been watching some movies lately. Last night we watched, let me see here. Let's see if I can do this. Share screen. Songs from the Second Floor. Is it Roy Andersson? Is that his name? Yeah, Roy Andersson, a director I had never heard of. But one of the beautiful things of YouTube and kind of subscribing and watching a variety of content on YouTube is you do end up getting sometimes the algorithm works incredibly well. Sometimes that algorithm brings something to your attention that I never would have known otherwise. There was this YouTuber, Now You've Been Watching Film, I think is what the channel is called, that popped up onto my radar a number of weeks ago at this time, maybe even months ago at this point. He's not the easiest to listen to, but there was a couple of his videos that I was interested in. My son and I ended up watching a couple, so I subscribed to him. So then this video comes up about this Songs from the Second Floor from 2000, and this still really caught my attention, and also the description, kind of what life is like in a capitalist society, when you can no longer kind of contribute or you're getting anything from it. He uses a lot of like satire, but the stills that you're seeing here are taken directly from the film. Every single one. I think there's only one dolly shot in the entire film, and it takes place just after this scene. The camera kind of starts moving backwards down the platform, but everything else, it's one shot. Each scene is one beautifully composed scene that's very painterly. It was incredible. It was an incredible movie. I can't say I've seen anything quite like this. I've seen things like this. I mean, Greenaway is kind of notorious for using his kind of tableau where it's just this one wide shot. His are very, very different, though, than what you're seeing here. And then, of course, Wes Anderson is the other one that comes to mind with like meticulous scenes. But even him, he uses editing a lot more than Anderson does. And the little bit of information that I know about Anderson that we were watching last night after this movie, like, look at this images. Like, look at these images, man. It's unbelievable. This scene was one of my favorite scenes. These decrepit mostly old men with a few women vomiting, looking disheveled. The woman in the foreground here, she can't even get up onto her seat after they've performed this ritual that they think is going to save them. They can't really hear. This guy keeps vomiting, or he vomits throughout the scene on top of the bar here. Unbelievable. So really, really worth checking out. Yeah, this is the scene. I think just before the one that I showed you. Amazing stuff. So after we watched the movie, we watched a Hello Andrew Lopez. I'll show you we watched this. It's Not Easy Being Human, the living paintings of Roy Andersson from Film Qualia, a channel that I didn't know, but when we were just kind of searching for more information on Andersson, this one came up. I would strongly recommend this video. It's it's filled with shots from his trilogy that make up, like, the first part was this Songs from the Second Floor. Then there's two other parts to kind of this trilogy. This it's hard to say about, like, spoilers. I don't think that there's any way you can really spoil his movies. It is about the movement through the story. It is about how individual scenes and characters kind of relate to each other. It's a lot of symbology. This one is a really fascinating video because it breaks down how Anderson presents his movies and how much he draws from classic painters, some names that I didn't recognize at all. So it's a really great kind of 13-minute clip. This guy is really easy to listen to, this Film Qualia. He hasn't done a lot of videos. We ended up watching a few of his videos last night, and they were all top notch. He hasn't done videos in quite a few years, unfortunately, because I'd watch more from this guy. So I'd steer you towards this to get a better sense of him and where he's coming from, and then go from there. Decide how, I think you'll be able to decide if you end up liking his stuff based on that video. I'll throw the link to that YouTube video in the description of this one. Hello, Dan Elson. Good, man. How are you? I'll throw the link to that in this one. And then last night I watched Annihilation in one of the video essays from that final guy there. He talks about psychedelic imagery in film, and especially in modern film. And he thinks about it in a lot of the same ways that I do. The excitement of CG and the potential for more psychedelic imagery to kind of weed its way into the mainstream, and using that technology. In that clip, in that little video essay, he talks about a movie called Annihilation that my son was also recommended. So I found it last night and watched it last night. Amazing. It was a Netflix movie. It's about 2 hours, just under 2 hours. An alien encounter, basically. Very, 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 very basically, because it's so much more than that. Pretty amazing, pretty dark at times. A little bit leaning into kind of like the Lovecraftian nightmare a bit, so that was kind of nice. This kind of existentialist kind of thing, this breaking down of a person, and pretty great stuff. So that's kind of what we've been watching. We also watched Day of the Beast, which is another great kind of satirical, pretty darkly funny black comedy about a priest who, the year 2000 is approaching, and he wants to help bring the Armageddon because he wants to defeat the devil. So he starts going off and doing these horrible things to help kind of attract the devil. One of the infamous scenes is him pushing a mime down a flight of stairs, like into the subway, stealing from people, etc. Getting into all sorts of trouble. It's pretty goddamn funny. It's well worth watching. I've seen it before. My son hadn't seen it, so we watched that last weekend. Or maybe it was the weekend before. I don't know. Recently, anyway. And then watched Big Lebowski. We're still on our Coen Brothers kick, showing my son all the Coen Brothers movies. So it was great to revisit that one. My wife watched it with us as well, too. I love that flick. It was really good to see it again with him. So all of that viewing out of the way, let's get into stuff that I've read. And why don't we start? Oh, look at this. Doing great. My wife and I finally found a house. Been looking to buy one for a long time, and we're in escrow. When we move, I'm going to get insurance for my comic collection. Good idea. Congratulations. House hunting fucking sucks. No matter when you do it. My wife and I ended up looking for quite a while too, and we ended up getting this house. My daughter was born November 1st. I think we ended up getting this house end of September. So my wife, or mid-September. My wife was kind of busting at the seams at that point. I've got some photos of her painting, helping paint the kitchen. I always say doing all the painting in the house as she was pregnant, and I would just walk around. Not true, obviously, but it's really, it's not a fun process looking to buy a house. In doing so, I imagine I'll need photo documentation of my collection, so I might just make videos of the collection. Love your recent collection tour, so I might do something similar. A, I would love to see that. That would be amazing, Dan. B, I don't know if that would be it. You might have to get someone to come in and appraise your collection, I think is what you have to do if you want to get insurance. Obviously, this is very dependent on where you live. I'm pretty sure that you're from the States, so it might be something that's very state specific. But honestly, I don't not do the videos. Absolutely do the videos, but talk to someone first, because I think that you need to get someone to come in and appraise it, as opposed to just getting photos, so someone can say the entire collection is worth X amount. And that might be something you, depending on how much you buy every year or sell, that might be something you have to kind of revisit every year. So check in with the insurance broker first to make sure that if you're going to insure it, that you do it the proper way. That said, it's something that I really should look into with my collection. I haven't at this point. It might be worth a conversation with my wife now that you're bringing this up. It might be something that I approach her and see, kind of have a look at our insurance and see how best to handle it. And then obviously the usual, if you're in the basement and you don't have filing cabinets or something, or you don't have actual racks where there's space where it's not on the floor, for the love of God, elevate it off the floor just in case. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I feel like I just have to say it out loud because it's the thing that I've seen the most in my years collecting comics. There's always a thread at some point in a message group where someone's basement is flooded and it's ruined their comics. It's happened to my brother when my parents' basement flooded. It was more records and CDs that got ruined because they were sitting right on the floor. So yeah, just starting to look into it. I really don't know how it works. I don't have any crazy expensive books, but I have an entire room packed with comics. And I think even if it's not crazy expensive, it's still a good idea to get an estimation on what the collection is worth. Even if it is like a couple of $1,000, or even if it is $1,000, then at least you know what the replacement value is. Having a buddy build me some huge shelves for all the boxes. That's awesome. How many boxes are we talking there, Dan? How many boxes do you have? So I'll start at kind of what I just finished reading this afternoon, and we'll work our way backwards through the week. I read a bunch of Usagi Yojimbo. So one of the things I found 3 of the 4-issue miniseries, The Girl Who Would Be Death, in it was either 50 cents or a $1 bin. I don't remember. It wasn't any more than $1 an issue, but unfortunately they didn't have issue number 1. So I went to this place in town called Cover to Cover. He has a really substantial back issue section, but what I do love about his stuff is he has it kind of broken down by company, and he has a lot of Vertigo stuff. He's actually got a pretty huge Eclipse Comics collection as well too, like in the back issue bins. So I figured if anybody would have number 1 of this Vertigo title, it would be him. I was correct. While I was there, I had to dig around for a couple of other things. Nothing too crazy. Found the missing issue of Grendel from this volume that I was missing. I think I now have the first 14 or 16 now in a row. So I'm looking forward to digging into that. A couple of issues of something called Jack the Ripper from Eternity Comics. I just really liked this cover. I think these were $1 each or something like that. They weren't that expensive. I really dug that cover. I was hopeful that the art was the same on the inside. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It's much cleaner, which is kind of a disappointment when you see a cover like that. Another issue of Yakuza. I have one other issue of this one. And then Werewolf at Large, issue number 3 from Eternity. So I grabbed a couple of those things. And then I had a look through the Usagi Yojimbo collection. And I ended up picking up this single issue. He didn't have very much. I'm kind of in the mood for more of the Fantagraphics Usagi. So I was hoping that maybe he'd have an issue or 2 or something that I could pick up. This is the 30th anniversary issue. So again, that homage cover to that Albedo. And when I was reading this is a great little story. Or sorry, 35th anniversary, the 35th anniversary issue. So when I was looking through this, gave it a read, really enjoyed it. It talks about kind of how Usagi became a Ronin, and there's a lot of flashbacks to the battle where his master dies, and he's kind of going back to that battle site, and he is going to the grave of his master, so he can ask to be released from his contract, basically. Lord Mifune, I have returned. Though I have been tempted, I have always remained loyal. I have not entered into another lord's service, but circumstances and personal relationships have changed. I asked to be released from my vows to you. And then he feels like he's being watched. So he continues on his way, and he finds this hut with an old woman who kind of brings him in and kind of talks to him about there's a goblin that haunts the mountains around Adachi Plain. And we get a glimpse of the goblin here as he kind of attacks in the middle of the night. We turn into once we kind of figure out more, we figure out, or Usagi figures out, that this is the person who betrayed his master. Toda is his name, and he's been turned into this goblin. And the old woman is his wife. And she asks for forgiveness. She actually asks Usagi to kill her, and he says no. So here we can see kind of the page where he finally defeats him, and where she's asking for forgiveness, and he tells her no and kind of continues on his way. You are released from your blind loyalty, Lady Toda. Call a priest and have him perform the Segaki service for the repose of your husband's tortured soul. And then he ends up walking away. So really, really cool. So what I didn't know, there's some back matter in here as well too, where Stan is talking about how this story was based off of or expanded upon the very first Usagi story, which was in Albedo #2. So part of this was kind of recreated from that, and then it was expanded on to kind of flesh out the story, because in Albedo 2 it was a short story. So I figured, why the hell don't I look for Albedo #2 digitally? Why don't I see if I can find it? I did, and let's have a look at it. So I found it digitally. Let's full screen this, and we can have a look through the very first. So the first appearance of Stan Sakai's Usagi Ojimbo, and we'll kind of have a quick look at the story. So right off the bat, the story starts with him finding the hut. I love the reveal of the character. So like the very first page, 1984, Stan Sakai. The very first thing we see is this kind of cloaked and hidden figure before he lifts up his hat there. I am called Miyamoto Usagi. I was amazed at how good his art looked right off the bat. Yes, there's room to grow for sure, but honestly, not as much room as I had assumed. I thought this first issue would be rougher, to be totally honest. And then I ended up reading the next issue of Albedo as well, because I found that online. I couldn't find anything else, because the next issue is part 1 of a 2-parter. So unfortunately, I couldn't find the next Albedo issue. And I love the use of flashback here. It's really nice to see that. Let's zoom in on that a little bit more. Yeah, there you are. Like, I mean, even those eyes and the lines on the face, you know, he's really, this was obviously, as we all know, someone who was coming into this with a whole lot of talent. He was working with Sergio Aragonés at this point on Gru doing lettering. So it's not like he came out of nowhere and was this voice of, you know, this unknown talent by any stretch. So I like the way they handle the battle here. Usagi at one point takes his, once his master is dead, he takes his head so it can't be desecrated by the enemy. And there he is kind of riding off with his master's head in his hands. Let's go next page. And then secretly burying the head, like that's a great shot of Usagi as well too. And then she's kind of talking about goblin. Have you not heard of the goblin in these mountains? In the 35th anniversary one, she kind of warns him about the goblins. This one is the opposite. She's not too concerned. And then we get our goblin coming up in the snow here. This section is pretty quick compared to what we just saw. He kind of breaks in. You will die horribly for this trick, samurai. It is you who will die, goblin. So he's put a dummy in there, knowing full well that this guy is coming for him. Where's my page down? I don't know how to do that. Do I do this? Control that or that? There we go. So a pretty quick battle. I love all the black and white stuff that takes place in the snow. It's one of my favorite things. And he kind of delivers the final blow there. And he's down. Crunch, froosh, husband. And that's when she kind of reveals who she is. So mimicking some of the panel layouts and stuff too, even though it's the style is much more refined. And, you know, especially the goblin, I think looks better in the newer, in the updated version there, but still a similar layout. And that's when he finds out who she is and who the goblin is. And we get a little bit of a rougher style from Sakai when she's kind of doing her remembrance. And I love this. So the same kind of ending, though. Now kill me, samurai, for my deceit. No, call for a priest, old woman, and have him perform the Segaki service for the repose of your husband's soul. I love this final panel of him walking off in the snow. I like this one more than the 35th anniversary one. Like, I love seeing him head to toe. I love the use of all that white space and his footprints as he just kind of wanders on. So it was a fantastic read, really great to dig into, to find that issue and dig into it. Let's see. Certainly conscious about natural disaster. My entire hometown burned down in 2018. Oh shit, man. Campfire in Paradise, California. All singles plus trade paperbacks and hardcovers is probably 75 long boxes. Dude, sellers, good afternoon. How are you? Never read Usagi. Looks very serious for a funny animal book. Yeah, absolutely. He's a very serious character for sure. Very good looking artwork. Absolutely. I love Usagi so much. There's an old guy I'm friends with who is the biggest Usagi fan ever and found Albedo #2 in a back issue box at our local shop back in the day for $1. Shut up. That's amazing. Stoic Hero. Whoops. Stoic Hero. Absolutely. Talking about the artwork, the demon's design reminded me of the demon from Frank Miller's Ronin. Yeah, all right. Yeah, right. So with that out of the way, I did end up reading. Let's see if I can open this one up. Let's close that. I'll show you the next issue from Albedo #3. Let's go into that one. Present. When I'm presenting, I don't see the chat. So it's not that I'm ignoring anything that you're saying. I don't see it up in front of me. Let's full screen this one again. So we get our Albedo story here off the top. Here we go. And within the space of a single issue, we're talking a year if we go by the date here. Already we see Stan Sakai in kind of pretty much his full form. The only thing that he does different, which honestly I don't mind it, is a lot of the characters are a little squatter, like they're a little shorter. They feel like I don't know, they just feel like they're just kind of shrunken down a little bit. The proportions are all equal, but they seem like short and squat. But I mean, the background there, the character design, the faces, everything is here from Sakai at this point. So this one is Usagi runs into this woman who is she's the protector. I think it's the Lord's son is what she says. Tomoami, this is my Lord Noriyuki of the Geishu clan. His father had recently died, leaving Noriyuki his sole heir. We are on our way to Edo, the capital, so that the shogun can establish him as new clan leader. So she's kind of protecting him along the way. But look at that image of Usagi, that profile of Usagi, quite a bit different. The design is like there's still a lot of him in there for sure. But there's these moments where it's dramatically different. And here you get kind of a better idea of kind of the squat nature of the characters in this era, especially in this panel here. They almost look like kids with kind of big heads, you know. So, but Usagi still looks really sharp. And the fight scenes are still incredible in this. You know, you still get that movement. You still get that violence that's on the page, but not really explicit. So they kind of continue on their way. He ends up getting hired as the bodyguard, the Yojimbo, and they're on their way, and he's going to escort them the rest of their journey. They get to this pass. They have to cross the river. So we get a band of people coming after them again. Usagi says, "You guys run. I'll stay here." Whoops. I'll stay here. And we get these beautiful shots. So there's a couple here that the layout is really impressive. So we're following her to the ferryman, and in the background we can see Usagi fighting off the bandits. This guy turns on them, and then a couple of panels later we get this one. So now Usagi has completely dispatched everybody, and in the background she's fighting off a bandit. Incredible. It's beautiful looking stuff. Like, just look at this. Look at this layout. It's really, really nice storytelling. So he sees what's going on, kind of runs down to their aid. She ends up getting knocked off of the pier. And then we get this amazing. I don't think I've seen him do this. This seems very, very cartoony. As cartoony as Stan Sakai is, this panel seems like one of the most cartoony things I think I've ever seen him do in my limited reading. Usagi moving through the one panel in 3 different spots, slicing the guy's head off. And again, I think it's cartoony because of the short and squat nature of the characters, but it feels like I haven't really seen him do something quite like this with his fight scenes. So they go and scour the shore looking for her, hoping that she's washed up on the shore. And then this is the last panel that we get when she's discovered. And of course, they think that she's dead. And we get a to be continued at the bottom here, I think. But like I said, unfortunately, I was unable to find Albedo number 4 online to continue the story. But seems like a great start. And it got me thinking of the Fantagraphics stuff. So I did a search on My Comic Shop to look at who put out the collections of those Fantagraphics books. For the Fantagraphics series, I think it started 1986 or 1987. That's considered kind of volume 1 of Usagi Yojimbo. There are a number of collections out there. They've also had reprints. The reprints are a little less expensive, the ones that they had on Lone Star anyway. So, because I'd love to get into those. And then the final thing for Usagi is I finally finished book 1. So this is from what's considered volume 2 of Usagi Yojimbo. Issues number 1 to 16 are collected in here, and that was the Dark Horse stuff. And then this also tackles volume 3, numbers 1 to 6. I had not read, I think it was the last 4 stories. I was almost done the book. It was the last 4 stories that I read. And of course I loved it. I'm just right in that headspace now. It's nice to see some stuff that's kind of newer. It's nice to explore that past as well too. But these were so goddamn entertaining. Every single story was a little bit different. They end up kind of dealing sort of the same theme, but just the way he tells these stories. So in this issue, we have this woman who's clearly a master swordsmith, a swordsman, and Usagi kind of finds her in this hut. Rose Princess Bara no Hime is how she introduces herself. Inazuma, I think. I half expected to meet you again. I recognized your handiwork earlier, Inazuma. So he enters this shack, and she's kind of telling the story about her life to this group of guys that are sitting there. And she kind of talks about the story about how she kind of learned how to handle the sword and how she eventually got better than her master, who turned to gambling and lost all the money they would make on a daily basis. He gets killed and she goes for revenge, kind of tells the story of kind of her journey so far. Really, really well told, amazingly told. Of course, we get the fight scene at the end where she goes to exact revenge. And then when we cut back to the present time, she says, well, that's it. The sun is rising. I got to get going. Thanks very much for letting me talk all night. And Usagi says, a tragic tale, hey? And kind of shoves one of the guys and looks, and they all end up falling down. They're all dead. They've been dead the entire time. So I guess these were some of the people that were coming for her. She kind of gives a warning before she walks off, not to kind of, I suggest you don't follow me. Assassins are always around. It was nice to meet you, Miyamoto Usagi. So long. So kind of a warning that don't follow her. There's always assassins, even in the shack where she's telling the story. Really, that was the final story in the book. So nice to have finished that. I'm on the hunt for book number 2. I was at the bookstore this afternoon close to me, and they only had volumes 7 and 8. I don't know if I want to jump that far ahead. I kind of want to read a bunch of this stuff in a row. It's the Fantagraphic stuff that I'm most focused on right now, though. Having never read Usagi, is there a good jumping on point for new readers, or do I need to begin at the beginning? I don't personally think you need to begin at the beginning. I like to, with this, I like to see his art develop. I think that's part of the fun for me when you're tackling a long running series with one creator. But honestly, these stories are pretty much standalone. There will be times where he has an arc, for sure, where there's a bunch of issues in a row, but there's so much out there that are just kind of single shots. Honestly, you can pick it up anywhere. There's going to be characters that kind of come in and out that you're maybe not familiar with. I don't think that happens to a degree where you lose something from the story. And at this point, again, like, all of this stuff has been reprinted in these thick volumes so many times. Like, this book alone is what, 590 pages of story, and then a little bit of backup, like a little bit of writings from Stan Sakai, and then some cover art from the single issues and stuff. And each of the volumes are about this thick. So price tag on this one was $29.99 US, $39.99 Canadian. And like I said, there's at least 8 volumes out there. So I think you can start at anything. The scene could have been drawn differently for a more tense feel. Maybe tense isn't the word, but I think you may know what I mean. Absolutely. There's also something called Space Usagi. Not sure how that's related to the larger narrative. So Space Usagi is its own thing. From what I understand, the series that's coming out now is the color version of a black and white story that had come out quite a few years ago. It's only a 3-issue miniseries, so that's a nice spot where you can get kind of a full story in one. I'm really enjoying Space Usagi. That second issue was really great. It is its own thing, though. It's just in name only, I think. I don't think it ties into the rest of the Usagi Yojimbo lore. It's like, just a sort of like an Elseworlds tale, so to speak, I guess. So that's all the Usagi that I read this week. Or actually mostly today, to be honest. And it was an absolute joy. What else did I read this week? Why don't we go backwards, like I said? So, The Girl Who Would Be Death, a 4-issue miniseries from Vertigo, 1998 and 1999. Here's the covers for them. This is Caitlin Kiernan, I think that says, and Dean Ormston, I think. We'll have a look in the issue itself and get the proper credits. Sean Phillips does pencils for this 3rd issue, just the 1 issue, which is an odd choice. It works. It's a great issue. I just find it odd that he did just the 1 issue. Maybe there was a delay or something, and he stepped in to help out. I'm not really sure. This was a pretty goddamn good series. The other thing that's great about this is that Neil Gaiman acted as a consultant on it. Yeah, he's actually listed as consultant in the book. So she was able to, there's the proper credits there. She was able to kind of refer to him. She got approached to do a death story. It was supposed to be about a cult that worships death, and kind of taking place kind of just adjacent to kind of the Sandman universe. She sort of took that idea and ran with it, and focused on kind of 2 main characters. And the cult is sort of like the background to the story. So it was a really solid read, man. How does she put it? What you're about to read is a story about death, much the same way that Raiders of the Lost Ark or Casablanca or Das Boot are stories about Adolf Hitler, or the way that Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean is a story about James Dean. So that kind of gives you the idea on it. It almost has a, what the heck is that? House on the Borderlands kind of feel to it as well, where our main characters are kind of locked up in this apartment, and these things kind of keep coming to them, and they have to fight them as they kind of come. So we get introduced to our 2 main characters. We don't have much of the backstory yet. The thing that we find out immediately is that they're experiencing these nightmares. There's definitely some trauma that's happened. And finally, this character comes in with a book that they've been hunting for a long time. What the heck is her name? His name is Ashera, sorry. And her name is completely blanking on me. I got to write these goddamn things down. So he finds this book, and if you know the Sandman universe, this book is kind of what was used to trap Sandman originally, and it's kind of had its history. So now it's in her possession. She wants to kind of trap death so they can bring back their best friend who they were going to join the cult of death with, that ended up going horribly wrong. He ended up getting killed, and they were let go. So it kind of just branches out from there, and her kind of journey, specifically her journey with the book. She also finds out that he's not only found the book, he's found the Ankh symbol as well too. Isn't that what it's called? Let's see if we can find that image. As a trinket that he's promised to someone else. There you go. And as soon as she touches it, she basically ends up dying. The life gets drawn out of her as soon as she touches it. So he had promised that to someone else, another client, and she basically says, fuck that, you're giving it to me. You don't have a choice. And they basically threaten to kill him if he doesn't kind of obey their wishes. And things start to unravel from there. I've read comics in my life where the ads are always a pain in the ass. I don't think I have ever read a comic with an ad that was, this is probably the most misplaced ad I've ever seen in my entire life. So they're doing this flashback of going to meet this cult of death, and they're standing by the gates, And we literally have the last couple of passages saying, Billy and Plath stopped bickering, and all three knew it wasn't a joke. Each clearly heard the heavy footsteps on gravel, the wind and crunching footsteps, and everything else frozen, ice still, silent. And Evangeline turned toward the city of the dead, turned to see ... Turn the page. What did they turn to see, pray tell? A fucking advertisement. Looks like someone woke up on the wrong side of the coffin. It is possibly the most ridiculous placement for an ad I've ever seen in any of these books. They always end up drawing you out of the story a little bit, for me anyway, because they're just so fucking stupidly placed. But that's got to take the cake. That's the most epic fail advertisement wise I think I've ever seen. Nocturnal Miss So, hello, how are you? Good afternoon. That said, though, this is a strong fucking series, and it just kind of gets better as the issues go. I'll just show you a couple of pages from the Sean Phillips penciled issue. It's just really great. I really dig the art. Again, it's this era. I mean, Vertigo in general for me holds such a soft spot. I know it doesn't do the same for a lot of other people, and I get that. But for me, Vertigo comics were pretty impactful for me. So it's such a place of comfort reading these Vertigo titles. I sat and read all four in one sitting. Very, very engaging story. Yeah, recommended. And especially if you find it like I did in like dollar bins, I wouldn't hesitate. It's goddamn good stuff. So there's the cover of issue number 4. And again, the beauty of some of this stuff is you're not buying into like 30 something issues. You're only getting those 4. So that was that one. Almost expected a Hershey ad or something like the 90s did. Yeah, right. Or like a Zit Cream ad or something, right? I got my hands on issue number 4 of the Enfield Gang Massacre. And then I also had 5 and 6. That is the whole miniseries. That is done. I read 4, 5, and 6, and I fucking loved it. I thought maybe 6, that's like maybe there was a hint at something more to come. But actually on issue number 1, we have him holding a gun. So it's supposed to sort of like the Ouroboros, I guess, or however you pronounce that word. It sort of wraps on around itself again. So bringing us back to issue number 1. I mean, I don't know what to say about this. Issue 6 had some just fucking brilliant moments. It ended, as much as the book is called The Enfield Gang Massacre, there's not much to kind of say as far as like spoilers. It's pretty much in the title. It's never kind of a mystery of what's going to happen to the Enfield Gang. You pretty much know. But even with that, there's this moment in here that I thought was really beautiful. And I love when the art kind of changes. I won't spoil anything. I'll just kind of show you a couple of pages that don't tell too much of the story. So I'll show you this. They do this sort of, they have these couple of pages here where they're kind of these more wide open storytelling pages talking about their life and things like that, right? What was going to be. So really, really nice moment, and then completely breaks down again and again. Like I don't want to. That's the one thing I don't want to spoil. This is a strong, strong miniseries. I hope they do more of these. I've got to get into that Texas Blood. I really want to read some of that. I've got a few of the issues. I really should just look for some of the collections, though. I'm so in love with this book. It's going to make the list for 2023 as well, because this final issue did come out this year. I feel like that it was a holdover from last year. It made the list for 2022, but it's always one of those things when a series doesn't end, anything could happen. It's nice to see early, looser Dean Ormston artwork. I'm only aware of him from Black Hammer. Okay, see, I haven't read very much Black Hammer, so that's good to know that he's still around doing stuff. I'll have to check it out. The final two books, maybe we'll end on the light note. So I read book one of Barefoot Gen, and holy shit. I knew, again, it's one of those books I knew what to expect. I knew what was coming. There were still some harrowing kind of moments in this book that were very upsetting. And I think one of the things that surprised me the most about this one is kind of how cartoony and childlike some of these pages were. I wasn't expecting that. I guess I expected the whole thing to be very serious and very heavy, but there's this real kind of kiddie comic aspect to parts of this. And just the way the characters interact with each other is almost like slapstick. So it was this very strange mix as I was reading it. And then when you got those dark moments, I think that probably helped those dark moments be even darker. One of the, I mean, obviously the bombing is pretty fucking epic, but the moment that kind of got me the most is when the bombs drop and there's this just level of devastation. First of all, those pages are something else, man. Those are really, I mean, I hesitate to say the word incredible design, but it's kind of grotesquely beautiful, you know, and it's kind of horror, right? So really nicely done. There's a scene that comes up where the house collapses on them, and yeah, there's so much in this book. There's so many themes they're tackling in this book. This idea of honor, this idea of joining up in the military, his father being very anti-war and very outspoken on it, and what ends up happening to their family because of his dad's outspoken nature. Yeah, it's pretty fucking spectacular. So we get the big moments that we know are coming, and their house collapses on top of them, and the mother and one of the sons survive, and they see the house has collapsed on top of the father, their other son, and the sister as well, to the daughter, and they're kind of howling for them to get the house off from on top of them, and they're just unable to do it, and they're screaming and saying it hurts and stuff, and the father's saying, like, you guys have got to get out of here. The fire is surrounding, it's getting closer to the house. You guys need to survive. She's pregnant, though the wife is pregnant, and as they're leaving, the brother is talking about it, getting his feet getting warm, and it is just absolutely fucking devastating. It's a devastating panel, and it's upsetting even just to talk about. I can feel a lump in my throat. Like, it's just unbelievable, man. Like, the powerful storytelling, and knowing that it's coming from a place of his personal experience, the author's personal experience of when he was a child living through it. It's kind of unreal. So I can't imagine it's going to get any easier to read after this, but these pages are just so dark and just really nicely done, that really portrays the story and really portrays the horror in an incredibly visceral way. So I can't believe it's taken me so long to read this. That's my downfall for sure. But now that I've got into book one, I really want to get the rest of these and start digging into that one more. It may be one that I space out a bit. You know, I'm not reading a book a week kind of thing, maybe a book a month. Yeah, and especially, again, at these specific times in history, that stuff becomes even more visceral, because, you know, there's people that are dealing with that this very second that we're sitting talking about fucking comic books, you know, which also makes that a little difficult to deal with sometimes. And then finally, let's end on a really light note. This was also from the 50-cent or dollar bins, just 2 issues from the 4-issue miniseries of Ambush Bug. I had these when I was a teenager. I had all the Ambush Bug stuff. I loved Ambush Bug. It was one of those things that, as I was cleaning out and selling things, I ended up getting rid of them. I definitely regret it. and I want to get all these issues back, especially after reading these 2 issues, number 2 and number 4. They were so goddamn fun. They were so kind of ridiculous. I enjoyed it just as much as I did probably when I first discovered this. There's images that are burned into my mind, like these page layouts. The density of the panels are definitely something that's etched into my brain. But also stuff like this, just the absurdity as he's going to go out and fight. He does a little, there's first, second, and third prize for costumes, for outfits. Yes, R.I.P. Keith Giffen, absolutely. And then there was this nice bit here too, the Ambush Bug Guide to Collecting Comics. Rule number 20. There's 24 different rules. Count your staples. If there's only one, you've got a problem. 3 is weird, but okay. 4 or more, seek professional help. Always hold your comic with 2 hands. Never hold a book with only 1 hand, as this can lead to mutilation and blindness. Hardy fucking har. Really funny, just funny stuff. Every page is something ridiculous. This one has this giant koala. Yeah, it's really great. And there's this DC character whose her job is to ensure continuity. Johnny, DC, Jonni, and her job is to ensure that there's continuity across all the DC books. And apparently this, I think it was this koala that belonged in another continuity. So that was a great issue. And of course, at the end of it, we got the tease, which was the tease for all of the issues. Darkseid was supposed to come. There was going to be when Titans clash was the thing that they sort of teased every single issue, and it finally pays off in the 4th issue, where of course it's not. We also get a character from the Thriller book in here, and it turns out he's in the wrong book. He admits it and kind of walks off the page at one point, which ends the story, which wraps it up pretty quick. So yeah, so many good moments. I want to get the rest of these. And then there was a 6-issue miniseries after this. And I think I've already got the Christmas special. I've got the 1-shot. So I'm hoping that I can find the rest of these in kind of cheap bins. So here's where they find out that it's like, okay, so he's gone now. We're not even halfway through the book. What the hell are we going to do? They put up a please stand by sign. There's like a connect the dots. So a mystery picture. What could it possibly be? And then there's some ideas thrown around of what they could do. The death of Ambush Bug, last issue. And he says, forget it. No way. Think of something else. Yeah, so really great reading here. Like fantastic reading. Yeah. I'm sure Ambush Bug is something that people are very familiar with, but if by some strange chance you're not, I think it's worth digging back into. And with that, that is it. That's all that I read this week. Thanks very much for hanging out and listening to me babble about my books this week. Hopefully we're back next week, and hopefully Rasa is with us. Yeah, that's right. Son of Ambush Bug. Exactly right. That was the other one. Hopefully Rasa is back next week. I'm feeling kind of like I'm back into full-on reading mode. My list at this time last week, I think, was at 19, and now I'm at 36. So I put quite a dent into my reading this week, which is great. Right on, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Later.